Tony Fisher. This is BBC Essex.
So, Shakin Stevens, a warm welcome to BBC Essex.
Nice to be here, Tony.
Lovely to have you on the show, and welcome back to Southend next month as well. Is it a part of Essex that you know well?
Is it a part of Essex I've known well? I've been there many times over the decades, but I haven't been there for quite a while, so I'm really looking forward to it. It's a nice venue, and we always have a great time there.
Well, I know so many people are looking forward to seeing you and hearing the stuff from the last album, Echoes of Our Times, which we'll talk about in a second or two, and also hearing those fantastic hits. And what I wanted to do today, Shaky, if I may, is just take you back to 1980, because I always remember when Hot Dog and Marie Marie came out, those two singles, those pivotal singles for you. And it was an amazing time because you were surrounded by punk rock, heavy metal, all this stuff dominating the charts. And there you were belting out these rock and roll songs. And you started something which nobody else at that time was doing, to my recollection. Is that how you remember it?
Yeah, I guess I was the only one out there, really. But thinking about thinking about it, there was a couple of bands. Well, the Matchbox was around for a while, and there were Stray Cats around for a while. It came out of the punk, the end of the punk 70s, I believe, into the 80s. So it was time for something, you know, as you have explained there. But yeah, they were good times. They were great, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, actually.
I'm not surprised, because all of a sudden you were there right in the middle of the public eye, but you weren't new to performing at that time. I mean, you'd really done your work, hadn't you, up to that point anyway?
Oh, yeah. I started when I left school. I mean, that's all I wanted to do was sing, and I was in several bands, and came the time where one could drive, a van, that is. We basically had the name of Shakin Stevens and the Sunsets, which I thought of with a friend of mine, and off we went, and we did universities and played in Europe, and yeah, we made 6 albums together. No success at all, of course, but we were known for a great live band. We're quite adventurous, really. It'd be nothing for us to climb up the up the stacks and stuff like that. But we played with a lot of people, from old Chuck Berry, Arthur Big Boy Crudup, Georgie Fame, Deep Purple. I could go on and on and on, really. They were great times, but starving times, and but it was very enjoyable.
Did that help you a lot once that success started to roll in the early 80s, having that background behind you?
It absolutely did. Yeah, it did indeed. Because when I left school, it was a new thing for me. I had nobody there saying, "Well, you should stand like this and sing like this and do that and do this and do that and you wear this." I just kind of went with the flow, and eventually, as the years rolled on, I got better and better and more experience, and that's how it went on, really. And when I had a chance to do a theatre, that taught me to look up to the gods, because the majority of the places we were doing. We did a lot of colleges and universities, but in the very early days we'd do smaller places like the Hope and Anchor and the Greyhound, where people like Dr. Feelgood used to play there, and many other. I think they used to call them pub bands then, Yeah. So I had I built it up as we went through the years.
And what an amazing career you've had up to date. I mean, I'm going to say this because you can't say it because it sounds like bragging, so I can. 33 hit singles, 4 UK number ones, platinum selling. When you're having that amount of success, particularly after you've worked so hard, it must seem like a bit of a blur at the time, because you were just about everywhere in the 80s, weren't you?
I was, actually, and it was a blur. Everything was so fast, and I was putting singles and albums out like bullets, basically. And of course, then I was very, 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 very naive. I was just kind of going with the flow with, you do this, you do that. And of course, the record companies, well, if it was a hit, they wanted another one, and another one, another one. So I didn't have really time to breathe, really. And I was doing UK tours throughout Europe, doing lots and lots of tours, Australia, everywhere, basically. And so they were very, very heady times. And, you come to a time in your career, after a certain amount of time, you need to move move on and not keep at it really. But there was a change in the company. I was with CBS. They were called CBS then, and I was signed by Muff Winwood and Oberstein. He was the top guy there, and basically they left the company. So the people that were there in the beginning, that they left and went to another company. So it was kind of I knew I had to move on, but unfortunately I didn't have anybody there to kind of say management-wise, representative-wise, to say, well, it's time to move on now and stuff like that. But as it rolled on to the 90s, I started to be aware, and I thought, well, somebody's got to do it, So eventually, I started with. I think the last album I did with the label was the Epic Years. So that was basically a 25 digitally remastered surround sound album. Basically saying, this is the epic years, these are the tracks I've done, and if you want it, come and buy it. But unfortunately, the record company didn't get behind it. But the single that came off it I was very proud of, was I did with Roger Taylor and Rod Argent of the Argent, and the song called, very appropriate as what we're doing now, is Talking on the Radio, but it was called Radio.
Right. And you know what? It's interesting. I was looking through your back catalogue of songs and the new album as well. Mm-hmm. The one thing that strikes me is that over the years, you have brought some of the biggest and the best songs back into fashion again. When you had a hit, for instance, with Green Door or This Old House, there's a different generation who know that song because of you. There were those who remember the 50s versions, the Rosemary Clooney's and all the rest. And what you did was, in effect, what I suppose Michael Bublé is doing today. You're bringing that to a whole new audience, and then that in its turn is bringing those songs to the next generation as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to do, because, when the Beatles came out, a lot of people was, in those days, you didn't look at the who was the producer or who wrote the songs and stuff like that. So the Beatles did a lot of covers, and they kind of, in fact, they did a lot of songs. The late great Chuck Berry, unfortunately, he passed away a couple of weeks back. And they kind of lifted Chuck Berry's career, with Roll Bay Door, and which George Harrison did. And there's a song called, there's many actually, like Go Now. People think, well, that is the original, but in fact, that was a cover by a lady in America. So I think it's a good thing actually to put new product out, but also there's nothing wrong with putting covers out as long as you put your own stamp on it and you introduce it to another audience.
And of course, Echoes of Our Times, your latest album, when it first came out last year, I was listening to it and I thought, what I was really interested in was the fact that you were really going back to your roots. This is a deeply personal album in many ways, isn't it?
It's very, very personal, and it was time for a change. And basically, I was in the studios and I was going down the route of the blues and stuff like that. And when I grew up, I didn't know anything about the family, so we started researching that before we went in the studios. And while we were in there, we thought, well, we were finding stories out of my ancestors down in Cornwall, Iguanap, were tin and copper miners. So we thought, well, hey, let's do a song about this. It's very dark. The situation down there. I mean, it's totally dark down there, and I mean, how they did it, God only knows. People. It used to take them 7, 8 hours to go down there and then climb up, and they'd be so tired and fall off. So that really, they said, well, hey, let's write a song about down in the hole. And so we went on with Echoes of Our Times. My dad was in the First World War, and three of his brothers, him and his two brothers, went to war and came back alive. I mean, it's that was kind of unique really, and the stories went from there. From that, and behind those secrets and lies, everyone's got secrets and lies in their families. If they say they don't, I don't believe them.
Yeah.
Spread the word, this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of the album. It's been well received. I didn't want to be put on the cover. That was a very thing that was didn't want that at all. You've got to move on, and basically, people. When the people I was with, look at the camera, look at the camera, like, well. And I thought, he's not going to look at the camera, So
you've done it so many times, eh, Shaky?
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Right. Yeah. So we put a clock on there, and it was very appropriate because it's a copper clock, and in fact it's in the house that we live, and we thought, there you go, there's the album cover.
And it's as a listen, Echoes of Our Times. What we have here is a story album. It's a story. It's an album that you listen to, I think, in one sitting. You enjoy it. You hear the stories. But what I love about the album is the last track as well, because I think sometimes the two most important tracks on the album, for me anyway, are the first and the last, because the first leads you into the journey, and the last one leaves you wanting more. And I don't think I've heard a better hook than Last Man Alive in quite a while. That's a heck of a powerhouse of a song to round up an album with, isn't it?
Thank you very much. Well, it's the same with an album. I've always been... You've got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And those two songs, as you say, are perfect to start the album, kick it off, and to end with. It's the same when you go on tour. You've got to have a beginning and a middle and an end. It's very, very important. I guess it's the same, on radio when you're playing your choices of music.
Absolutely. I've got to ask you, before we get on to the show itself, which is coming to the Cliffs Pavilion in Southend, a little bit about Merry Christmas, everyone, because everybody talks about that. That song, since it came out in '85, comes around every single Christmas. You have done what many people strive their whole life to do, which is record the Christmas song. I mean, you're up there with Slade and Merry Christmas, everybody. I mean, what's the secret behind the song? Why do you think it keeps coming round every single year?
I think everybody can relate to it like they can with a lot of Christmas songs, like Slade, John Lennon, etc., etc. And it's once a year. It's only, excuse me, it's only a couple of days, basically. You've got your humbugs out there, you'll always have that, but you'll have people that love Christmas as well. But, it's got, excuse me for coughing, but it's got Christmas lyrics in there. It's got the full package, basically, and, it went to #1, and it's been very, very successful throughout the world. And it comes around every year, and it gets in the charts every year. I mean, I think last year or 2 years ago, we did a new Merry Christmas, Everyone. We called it Echoes of Merry Christmas, Everyone. Yeah. And we got it more or less near the album, so kind of people could relate to the echoes of our times to that particular one. They put banjo on there. I actually phoned up the writer as well, Bob Heatley. He's a Scotch guy. And he's very pleased. He's very pleased every Christmas, obviously.
Yes, exactly. A new fridge freezer every Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. And we said, just change a few words in it. What do you think of it? And he said, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Put it out. Put it out. Put it out. Fantastic. So that was it, basically. Yeah.
Well, we probably won't be hearing Merry Christmas, Everyone. I wouldn't have thought on the show on the 18th of April at the Cliffs Pavilion in Southend. But what we are going to hear is a selection of all those classic songs that we were talking about, plus echoes of our time as well. Is that how you're going to do it? Mix the two?
Going to mix the echoes of our times. I'm going to do all the tracks from the album of that. There will be hits. We can't leave the hits out. There will be hits, but they'll be done in a slightly different way, and they won't be disappointed because the fans from the early days, and of course there's newer people that's come in, over the years, the decades, and so forth. But I'll give you an instance. I mean, I said to this one person, Green Door. What did you buy that record? They said, yeah, I loved it. I bought it. And I said, what do you think of the new version I'm doing now? And they said, I like that as well. In fact, I like that one better because it's a kind of a move on stage. It's healthy to move on. And so I like that as well. So they won't be disappointed. And of course, there'll be other songs that they haven't heard me sing before. There'll be some album tracks and surprises, and a great band to go with it. I mean, the band consists of 9 members: 2 female singers, 2 guitars, mandolin, slide guitar, acoustics, drums, bass, tenor, harp, harmonica, trumpet, piano, accordion. It's all there. All the packages there. And for those people that don't come to see the show, they're missing out on something. We're gonna have a ball.
Shakin Stevens, absolute pleasure. Thanks for being with us this afternoon at BBC Essex.
Been lovely talking to you. Thank you.
Tony Fisher. This is BBC Essex.